Welcome along to Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, Steve Wyss and James Eastham. Steve, how are you? And which Serie A coach are you predicting to lose their job this weekend, having called both Vieira and Pioli over the last few days?
Well, good day to you both. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Looking forward to the final round of action before the next international break. Hopefully we can make a bit of profit about it. Patrick Vieira has been sent on his way, and true to form, as soon as he's out the door, they win a game. And I said that on the live show on Monday. It's the way it goes. Who's next out? Probably the Verona coach. I mean, it's harsh. I actually think they've been really, really unlucky. But it's a results business, isn't it? We're getting to the stage now, actually, in all the mainstream leagues where forget performances, forget underlying metrics. It's how many points you've got in the table. We get into a stage where presidents and chairmen are going to panic. Fans are going to get stuck into managers. So it's about points on the board now. And I think they're at risk with still no wins.
Yeah, I'm just making sure as we speak that he's still in Zanetti. Tudor's gone as well over the last sort of 7 days. I mean, it's the season, isn't it, James? And I started to look at France and I thought, well, surely they're a bit more sensible in France. Adi Hutter's gone. He's the only one, but 8 did go during the 24-25 season. Who might be under pressure in Ligue 1, do you think?
Well, we thought it was going to be Habib Bey, the manager at Rennes, and then Rennes won 4-1 last weekend against Strasbourg. That was their best performance of the season, so he might be safe. We thought it might be Le Mignon, the manager at Metz, who are bottom of the table. They've won 2 on the bounce now, and they're looking pretty good. So hard to say at the moment. Probably Christophe Pélissier, who is the manager at Auxerre. They've dropped to bottom now. But he's pretty well respected there, so I think they'll give him a little bit longer. It looks at the moment as though Ligue 1 is one of the more stable divisions in Europe. But as Steve says, that can all change very quickly at this time of year.
I don't think that any of the coaches at the top 2 in Spain are under any pressure, but we're going to talk about Spain in just a second to kick the show off. We have got the P&L on screen, and it just seems to sort of stick at the same sort of figure, unfortunately. I guess we're not going down that much, only a tiny, tiny little bit, but this is the P&L through 10 shows. Obviously, you know, we're Bet Rivers prices. If you bet best prices with the boys' picks, you're probably showing a little bit of profit. Plenty to discuss, some smart plays coming your way, and if you like what you hear, make sure you subscribe to the newsletter, bettingweeklystudios.com. And of course, get your comments in on the YouTube chat, subscribe and like. I mentioned we're going to kick off with Spain. I don't know if there's a bit of a crisis here. I'm probably over-egging this, Steve and James, just to get some sort of line in to start the show. But obviously, Steve, we had, Real Madrid losing in the Champions League, Barcelona nearly losing to Club Brugge, Villarreal defeated by Pafos as well, only Atleti flying the flag in Europe's main competition. Are they on a little bit of a downward trajectory, I think, from a European perspective?
Nah, it's a long season, isn't it? Losing at Anfield's not really that bad. Barcelona are just a glutton for goals, aren't they? In every game, it seems that they can. You're not going to be backing Barcelona to win to 0 that often, and it feels like in Europe, especially, they get involved in these ridiculous shootouts. And for Villarreal, it's a bit more concerning. You must have been jumping for joy. Pafos with a great win there first.
Didn't bet him.
Didn't you? No way. No. I actually nibbled the handicap on Pafos there. It was nearly +2. Yeah. But a great win for them. I don't think it's really a crisis, but we do know, look, that the Premier League sides are very, very dominant in Europe at the minute, and the Liga are feeling the pressure that way.
Yeah, this is true. Look, obviously, Real Madrid and Barcelona both aiming to bounce back in La Liga this weekend. They're both away from home, both play on Sunday, both are roughly the same sort of prices here. So let's just get a couple of leans from the boys on these games. First of all, James, give us your thoughts on Rayo against Real Madrid here. This is 12:15 Sunday. Real Madrid are -210. I mean, they're still the title favourites, obviously -250, and the 5 points clear at the top, having won 10 of 11. 1 or 2 injury issues, certainly at the back. Carvajal, I think he's out for another extended period, having missed a lot of last season, and I think Tchouameni's the latest, unfortunately, to head to the treatment table. Do you see them slipping up away at Rayo?
No, I think they'll win here, Dan, and it is a lean from me on them to do so. They're very short to get the 3 points. They're -210. So my lean is on them on the Asian handicap with a -1 goal start. which is available at minus 127. So you will get your stakes back if Real Madrid win by a single goal, and you'll make a profit if they win by 2 or more. And, they have been flying in La Liga. There's no doubt about it. They've won 10 out of 11 so far. The only slip-up was that defeat in the derby against Atletico Madrid. 5 of those 10 wins have been by 2 or more goals. So you're in pretty good shape with this lean, based on how they played in La Liga so far. But I think they will have got a bit of a shock in midweek, actually. It's only one game at Anfield. But they were kept fairly quiet, weren't they? Most of the views on the game were that Liverpool did dominate it. And yes, Liverpool have run into a bit of form recently, but they have had a difficult season. So I think a bit of a wake-up call maybe for Real Madrid that it's not as easy when they're playing top teams away from home in Europe as they've probably found it most of the time in La Liga. I think it will sharpen them up a little bit here because those attacking players, in particular in midweek, didn't do that well. And I think they'll have a bit of a point to prove. It's a sort of game, as I say, they have won fairly comfortably this season, but I just had a slight nervousness about backing them as either a 1-unit or a 2-unit play this weekend, something I have done fairly regularly this season, but just like to see how they do respond to what in some ways is their first real setback in Europe this season. So just a lean from me, but I would expect them to get the win. Real Madrid -1 on the Asian handicap.
At -127, just winning the game means you get a push if it's just by a solitary goal. That's just the lean. And Steve, you've got some thoughts on Celta Vigo against Barcelona. Again, Barcelona round about -$2 favourites here, -182, a little bit bigger than Real Madrid. They've only won 3 of the last 7 in all competitions. The second favourites for the title with Bet Rivers at +225. Haven't managed a clean sheet in any of the last 9. I think Pedri is the latest to suffer injury. He's going to be out for a few weeks, I think. And Celta are just an awkward team based on results and nothing else. So many draws, but suddenly are putting 1 or 2 wins together as well. They do play tonight against Zagreb in the Europa League. I think you've alluded to your lean already, though, with this one. How are you tackling Celta Barca?
Yeah, I've got to go over 3.25 goals here at -108. Barcelona matches tend to go wildly over. They can get involved in some really big shootouts. And do you know what? I was looking at a hot dog potential here. Over 4 Asian goals is +200. And I think you could do worse than that, or even over 4.5 goals. Celta Vigo, as you said, they're playing away from home in Europe. I think that's a negative for them from an energy perspective, and they could leak a few goals. They don't keep many clean sheets anyway. They had a lot of 1-1 draws earlier this season, but I think against Barcelona, they'll have a bit of a go. I think both of the teams against Real Madrid and Barcelona will have a go. Rayo Vallecano, of course, it's a local derby. I'll be looking at the corners in that game. It's the sort of game which I think the corners could fly in. But in terms of Celta against Barcelona, I think there's a head-to-head in there as well. Was it 4-3 last season? And I think it was a 2-2 draw in this particular game as well. And then even before that, there's been the goals have flowed. So I think we can expect a really good finish to the round in La Liga.
If you do want to back them both on the money line, it's about +130. That will be popular for some, I think. Real Madrid and Barcelona are both doing. They're both away, both similar-ish prices. Be interesting to see how they get on after disappointing results in midweek. Let's get some official plays, shall we? And I think for the first time, probably ever, both of our 2U plays are in the Bundesliga, which is very much a diversion for James. We're going to start with Steve's 2U, which is a 9:30 Saturday game. Hoffenheim against Leipzig. Hoffenheim +160. Leipzig are the favourites +140. There's going to be bettors looking at that thinking it could be value. They've won 8 of the last 9 in all competitions. They are the most profitable team in the Bundesliga when it comes to the money line. Leipzig at +493 to level stakes. Incredible, given their match day 1 spanking at the hands of Bayern. But it's not the money line we're interested in, Steve. What's your 2U?
Well, you know what I'm like, Dan. Once I get a winner on the board, I like to sometimes stick with the same sort of bet with the same sort of teams. So here we go again. It's a Leipzig game, so I'm going on over the goal line. This time I'm going to raise the goal line to 3.25 on the Asian handicap at -122. I could have gone over 3 Asian goals at -165, but I actually think the 3.25 line's better value. So we'll do that. And, Leipzig, like I said last week, they're full of goals, they're full of confidence. They look really dangerous, both either on the break or building up patiently. So it's a really they are going under the radar, aren't they, RB Leipzig? In terms of results, they're second in the table. They might become the biggest challenger at Bayern this season, especially as they're not in Europe. And then they face a Hoffenheim side who are also very, very confident. 3 wins in a row. Oh, we talked about Hoffenheim right from pre-season, didn't we? They were scoring goals for fun heading into the campaign, and they're doing really well in the table. 6th place, really nice rebound season for Hoffenheim. And, both these sides rank in the top 5 for expected goals. So it's not like they're fluking goals left, right and centre. And all things considered, this should be a really, really good game. Between 2 confident teams, it will be sort of like 2 boxers going punch for punch. There's enough quality on the field as well, so we can get goals from a low XG position. And there's not really much else I can add. I think if you wanted to be brave, you could go over 3.5 goals. Is perfectly fine. Over 4.5 goals as well. I think this is a game that actually could go crazy as well. 4-3 last season. This fixture. I wouldn't rule out that again, really. So, for me, the 2-unit play just stood out like a sore thumb. For me, is the best bet of the round of the Bundesliga. Over 3.25 goals at -122 with Bet Rivers at the time of recording.
Betting without, Steve, very quickly on this one. I've backed Dortmund betting without. I'm getting slightly concerned. Betting without, Dortmund -139. Leipzig +350. A lot of recency bias thinking that +350 is a bit of value. But it's a bit of value, isn't it?
well, I'm also on the same bet, Dortmund without Bayern. And the main reason I took them pre-season was because I was fading Leverkusen. And I still think Dortmund will finish ahead of Leverkusen. But RB Leipzig now, I mean, I didn't really see this coming. I think they because they're not in Europe as well. That's a really big positive, and that they could do it. They could do it now. There's no real difference, is there, for finishing 2nd and 3rd in Germany? It's the same outcome,
I think you just mentioned something there in passing about the way that Leipzig play, and you look at some of the stats. They can play counter-attacking football. They can play on the front foot as well. They're not bedded to one style, I don't think, this season. Can be interesting to see how they progress. One team that they won't catch is Bayern, as we know, because they are absolutely flying. And this is subject of James's 2-unit play. First time I think that James might have had a 2U in Germany. They're away at Union Berlin, Saturday 9:30, Bayern -480 here. 16-match winning run, including 9 in the Bundesliga, aiming to match record set by Pep Guardiola's Bayern 15-16 campaign 10 years ago when they won their first 10. So, are Bayern, after midweek exertions, James, going to stumble? Are we playing Union Berlin on the Asian line, or are we going the other way and more Bayern bounty? What's the 2U?
Yeah, Bayern bounties for me, Dan. Backing them all the way here. The 2-unit players on Bayern Munich on the Asian handicap with a -1.75 goal start at -130. So with that play, you'll make a profit if Bayern Munich win by 2 or more goals, which is something that, well, I think they could have done it in midweek when they won 2-1 at Paris Saint-Germain. I think that game was really indicative of just how strong Bayern Munich are at the moment. They were the better side, especially when it was 11v11. They obviously went down to 10 men in that game. But they showed Paris Saint-Germain that they're the best team in Europe right now. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You can maybe make a case for Arsenal, but they certainly look stronger than PSG. And I said a few shows ago, I think they're a good shout to win the Champions League this season. I think they were 4th favourites at the time. They're into 2nd favourites now with most markets on the back of that win over PSG. So everything's going great for Bayern Munich. And I think this play it's great, really, because -1.75 on the Asian handicap, you only need Bayern to win by 2 goals. And I say only, which sounds strange in some ways, but they've won 11 of these 16 matches that they have won by 2 or more goals, and often by 3 or 4 goals. So they're absolutely flying. Don't see any reason why that would change on the back of that PSG game in midweek. I don't think they will ease off. I know there's talk about whether they've got the squad cover in certain positions, which I understand. It might mean that Vincent Kompany is slightly restricted when it comes to rotation, but I do think they'll have enough because they've been showing that week in, week out in the Bundesliga. And, 90% of this play really for me is about Bayern. But if you just have a quick look at Union Berlin, they're 10th in the table. They have played a couple of the other top sides who aren't as good as Bayern anyway this season. They lost 2-0 against Leverkusen and they lost 3-0 against Dortmund. So I think it's very difficult to make a case as to why Union Berlin would put up too much resistance here. If it goes the way that Bayern games have been going all season, it should be a comfortable win. So 2-unit play from me on Bayern Munich, minus 1.75 on the Asian handicap.
Are Bayern the best team in Europe, Steve? They're plus 500 to win the Champions League. Arsenal plus 450.
Well, the Betting Weekly Insider, which will be coming into your inboxes on Friday. Plug it now on the graphics on the screen. There has been a change in the power rankings. I'll tell you that. PSG are no longer top. You have to find out who is number one. But look, at the moment, Bayern are very, very strong. I was just thinking where you were just talking about the pick there, James. How many? Could they go unbeaten in the Bundesliga this season? Who's even going to take a point off them?
Yeah.
At this point, no one looks like taking.
They won't win them
the
all.
Teams. Think about the teams that could maybe do it is like your Frankfurts or your Dortmunds of this world, or Leipzig's away from home maybe, but they're going to win a lot of games, aren't they?
They are, and if you think back to, sorry Steve, I was going to say, if you think back to last season, there was a lot of talk, wasn't there, about whether PSG could go through that French league season unbeaten, which they didn't manage to do in the end. I would say Bayern Munich have probably got a slightly better chance of doing it in the Bundesliga this season than PSG have had last season. I completely agree with you. When you see the way they're playing, they don't even have to play at top of their potential every game to get the win. So, it's hard to see at the moment how they're going to actually lose a game.
Match day 5 of the Champions League fixtures, don't you? Next match day.
What's that?
No.
I'm sensing you don't. It's Arsenal versus Bayern Munich, match day 5 in
amazing.
London. What a game that is going to be.
That's a game, isn't that?
Top 2 in the betting, top 2 in Europe. According to the ratings, I don't know. I am just going to have to wait until the insider drops into my inbox for that one. 2U plays done and dusted, both in the Bundesliga. Let's get some 1U picks, official plays from the boys. We're going to start with Steve and Serie A, Como Cagliari, 9 a.m. Saturday. This one, Como are minus $2 favourites. Not the shortest price they've been this season. They're 7th in Serie A, 6th in expected points table. Cagliari 14th and 19th. They dropped quite a lot if you look at some of the underlying metrics. But a lot factored into those prices. The short, Como, Steve, where's the play?
I think it's about time we started making some official profit on Como. They're very,
well,
very
you hated
good
them. You hated them earlier this season.
Yeah, but I admit I got it wrong, and sometimes
yes,
you've got to do that in betting and in soccer. And
100%.
I think the final tipping point for me was doing the live show with Will White last week, and we talked about Como, and he's basically said they're legitimate on these ratings, everything, and they are being priced up now as one of the top sides in Serie A, which they actually are. So I'm not going to overcomplicate it here. Como -1 Asian handicap at -115. As long as they win the game, we're not going to lose anything whatsoever. They're facing a very, very limited Cagliari side, who, I watched them against Lazio in midweek, and I was actually on Lazio in that game, and I think this is not a great Lazio side. It's all right, gets the job done. But it just struck me how limited Cagliari were. They're not offering much. They've not won for a while. Their 2 wins have been against Lecce and Parma. And, this Como team are unbeaten since, the end of August. They don't concede many goals. That's one thing I really like about Como. No one's talking about their defence at all. So 1 goal is usually enough to win a game. But they're going into the places. They're legitimately outplaying Juventus. I thought they outplayed Napoli last week. They missed a penalty. Why they didn't have Nico Paz on the penalty, I don't know. Instead, it was Morata, wasn't it? So they could have won that game if that penalty had gone in. It's just, I think there is a really big gulfing class between these two sides. To casual observers, you might not think that, or Como Cagliari, for those who haven't followed Serie A for a few years, would be thinking, this might be a bit of an even game. But we're at a stage now where Como are here for real. And as I say, I think it's about time I made some official profit on them. So I think they'll get the job done to 0 here, 2-0 or 3-0. I think they'll have enough about themselves to beat pretty poor Cagliari side. So -1 Asian handicap just makes a lot of percentage sense in this instance for the official 1 unit play from me this week.
And to James' official 1U, we go to France. And the big game in France, really, Lyon against Paris Saint-Germain. 2:45 on Sunday Eastern. PSG are the minus money favourites, -134. That might make appeal to some, looking in just as a base bet here, not really dialing into any sort of injury details. Lyon plus 310. James, you go away from the money line, but you're certainly factoring in the lack of regular personnel for PSG. And this has been a problem for them all season. If you've picked your spots well opposing PSG, not that you're going to oppose them here, but if you pick your spots, you've made some money this season. What's the angle in here?
Yeah, absolutely right. The angle in is a 1 unit play on under 3.25 goals here, which is available at -141. So if the game has 3 goals or fewer, then you will make a profit here. And I think Lyon PSG, it's one of those games where when you just look at the fixture, you expect it to be an attack-minded game with goals, because that's how these two teams generally play. But I think there are a lot of reasons this weekend why this game might well go unders. And the first, as you say, Dan, is to do with PSG's injury news, because they've already had more injuries, if you add up the number of games missed by their squad this season, than they had in the whole of last season. Really, really serious injury problems at the club every single week. They've got worse ahead of this weekend. We already know, as we're recording, of 4 players who will be out, those players being Hakimi and Nuno Mendes in the fullback positions, Dembele and Desiree Doué up front. That is essentially 4 attackers for PSG. We know Mendes and Hakimi are fullbacks, but they're really bigger attacking positives for PSG than anything else. You take those 4 out, you lose an awful lot of goals and assists from this side. So it's not really about PSG changing the way they play this weekend. I think they'll play the way they generally play in Ligue 1, which is to win games home and away. But without that quality, I just don't think they're going to be as dangerous. And, we've seen that in games from them already this season. We saw it a few times last season when they either had injuries or rotated, which they didn't do that much. But I think the starting 11 at PSG is very, very good, as we know. And the backup players in some positions are either not as good or a little bit different. So the fullback positions this weekend, I think, will be an example of that. And for Lyon, I think it makes it interesting as to how they'll approach the game. They've got their own European match on Thursday night in the Europa League. They may rotate a little bit in that game to keep players fresh for this match. But I think they'll see this as an opportunity to get points against PSG, because PSG are under strength. And I don't necessarily think that means they'll be particularly attack-minded. I think they'll know they're facing a weaker PSG attack than they normally would, and they might try actually and keep it a bit tight and see if they can keep it to a low-scoring win or a draw or something like that. So I think the team news is really important, and generally speaking anyway, the stats are on your side so far this season when it comes to under goals, because 17 of the 22 games these two teams have played in Ligue 1 have actually had under 3.5 goals. You'd have been paid out 17 times in 22. If you just look at Lyon's home games, with this being a home match for them, and PSG away games, then under 3.25 goals would have paid out 10 out of 11 times. So we're already seeing signs of PSG struggling going forward compared to what we maybe expect of them. And I think this weekend particularly is a good opportunity to try to get that onside. So it's my 1 unit play. It's under 3.25 goals. It's available at -141.
That's a really smart play. All the stats in your favour. It's incredible, the amount of unders, not just under 3.5, under 2.5. You're massively in profit if you're playing PSG. It's sort of counterintuitive, because you just expect the best side to score lots of goals, and they haven't been. And obviously that's because they're missing players as well. That is the 1 unit play. Let's get some hot dogs, shall we? Next, first of all, we're going to go to Steve Wyss, ladies and gentlemen. This is 1:30 Sunday. I don't know why I'm laughing. Eintracht Frankfurt versus Mainz is the game in question. So it's the Bundesliga. It's a hot dog. It's Steve Wyss. So what are we? Is the ladder coming out? What is this? 4.5 over 5.5 over 6.5. Steve.
Hot dog. Is still missing, isn't it? It went missing. I was really confident in my hot dog last week. I really thought that was a great spot, and I know a lot of people did cash on the match, going on the double chance with Werder Bremen, but that wasn't enough for my hot dog. So I'm a bit lost with it. So I've decided to kind of go against the grain here and to just throw something a bit random things. You mentioned there with James's hot pick on the 1 unit, all the stats are in his favour. Well, all the stats are not in my favour here whatsoever. Because the bet that I'm going with is a surprising one. And this is in the Bundesliga, Eintracht Frankfurt against Mainz, under 1.5 goals at plus 475. And the reaction to a lot of people listening and watching will think, bloody hell.
Steve's gone mad. Where's Steve gone? Somebody's replaced Steve with someone else.
Every single Eintracht Frankfurt game this season in the Bundesliga has gone over 1.5 goals. So this has not happened yet domestically. However, I believe there's a few factors to consider here. Eintracht, in the last week or two, their fixtures have been a bit more low scoring. 1-1 draw in the DFB Pokal against Dortmund. 1-1 draw against Heidenheim. 0-0 draw against Napoli in the Champions League. I think the manager's had enough of these crazy high-scoring games. It happened really after the Liverpool game. They beat St. Pauli 2-0 as well. So they're actually on a run of 4 straight under 2.5. So I think Frankfurt, the Leopards, change its spots a bit. And then they're facing a Mainz side, but we don't know the result of the Mainz game against Fiorentina tonight. But I've said before, I think Mainz are in a really scheduling hole right now. They're struggling perhaps physically, and I think both teams will lack a bit of energy. And the final factor is this late kickoff time in Germany. It's caught my eye as being a really low-scoring affair for a while now. We've had 4 matches so far kick off at 7:30 local time. Why they kick off this late, sometimes I don't know. It doesn't feel right. I know sometimes when we've had a Premier League game. Is
it just as well to, because obviously teams involved in Europe, they've got to find a slot for them, and they don't double up on the slots. I don't think on Sunday, do they? I don't know, to be honest.
I don't know the ins and outs. There might be some viewers who know the reasons, but last season there was 11 matches played at this kickoff time, and so far this season we've had 4. 10 of the 15 games there mentioned have gone under 2.5 goals, including 2 times 0-0 already this season. There were 2 0-0 last season in this spot. The only over was the first one back in August, Cologne 4, Freiburg 1. And I've just seen some really low-tempo, some of the poorest games in the Bundesliga have been at this kickoff time. I don't know whether it's just that maybe the fans are not as up for it as much, the players aren't up for it as much. I've seen some Premier League games on this spot before. Remember that Man United Fulham game last season, Dan? That was shocking. It was like the worst lowest XG game in the Premier League last season. I think the players don't really want to be playing Sunday evening in Germany when they'd much rather be getting out there on the field on a Saturday afternoon. So I'm going to chance my arm at under 1.5 goals. I honestly thought about having the 0-0 draw as my hot dog at 18-1. Now, that would have been maybe a step too far.
Wow.
But, yeah, I just think this goes quite a bit under. The main goal line is 3 Asian, by the way. I think under 3 goals Asian is a great-looking bet here, because mine's, I'm not sure what's left in their tank. It's somewhat of a local derby as well, by the way, so it could be tight. There's always been at least one draw between these two teams in 7 of the last 8 seasons when they've met each other. So you can get quite some close-ish games. So I will chance my arm on under 1.5 goals at plus 475. I'm just keep trying a few things here with this hot dog, and maybe I can randomly hit one where the stats are perhaps not in my favour.
Yeah. Look, and we always say to everyone, look, read between the lines here. These are the, we're putting certain things on the cappers that they have to adhere to. You don't have to. You can go under 3. You can go over, 275, 250, whatever you want. But Steve's, looking to back for the bleachers here. Plus 475, under 1.5 goals. Let's get something a bit more orthodox from James. Well, not really for the hot dog. Orthodox-ish. Le Havre Nantes is a 1 p.m. Saturday game. This is your hot dog. James, Le Havre, our favourites. Even money pretty much. Plus 102. Nantes plus 280. What is the hot dog?
The hot dog plays on the tie here, or the draw, which is available at plus 230. We're obviously going plus 200 or bigger with our hot dog picks of 1 unit. That is our stipulation every week. So I like the draw here at plus 230. But as you say, Dan, people watching, they don't have to follow everything we do. So just to give you some insight into why I went for the draw here, it really started with my view that Le Havre too short at plus 102, almost even money. It's the market saying they've got a 50% chance of winning the game. I really like Le Havre and the way they've played this season. I think they've been really positive under Didier Degaard. I've seen them take the game to teams who on paper are better than them. They've been very brave. But they do lack, for me, a cutting edge in attack. And what that's meant for me watching them is that they sometimes aren't able to turn some pretty brave attacking moves and good territorial domination into goals. So I think it does undermine them a little bit in terms of winning games. I think that plus 102 is a bit too short on them. And generally speaking, I don't think there's a great deal to pick between these two sides. I think Nantes are slightly different in the way they play, but they'll probably finish fairly close to each other, I would think, these two sides in the final table. Nantes lost at home last weekend to the bottom club Metz. That was a really disappointing performance from them, probably their worst of the season. I think that means they'll do everything they can this weekend to just make sure they avoid defeat. I think a second consecutive defeat against potential bottom six rivals would be a big blow for them. So I can see them keeping it as tight as they possibly can, trying to get a draw. If you build in the fact that Le Havre are not necessarily the most dangerous in the final third, I think we've got a fairly good chance of this finishing as a tie. So, as I say, my starting point was the view that Le Havre are a bit too short at plus 102. If you're looking at any sort of odds on the game, you may want to look at Nantes on the double chance or Nantes in the Tino bet market, something like that. But I do think the draw at plus 230 is probably a bit too big, given how little there is to pick between these teams. So my hot dog play, the draw's available at the moment at plus 230.
Let's get some leans, shall we? Got leans across the 4 leagues that we cover. We're going to just keep it rolling with Ligue first off the bat. And pretty much, I think, the same bet here. Titled differently from Steve and James on the Monaco Lens game. Steve?
I think we're in agreement for this one, me and James, aren't we? Lens on the plus 0.5 Asian handicap. And this is at minus 115, I think it is. Look, Monaco, I'm just not convinced by them at the minute. I think they got that win at Bodo Glimt midweek, which is a great place to win, isn't it? But I've mentioned before, it's not a great spot for Bodo Glimt right now. But they're outplayed anyway. And I've seen teams on the back of playing Glimt before, and it's quite difficult, the physical style that they exert on you. And I think Monaco might be a little bit flat this weekend against a Lens side who've had a whole week off, who've generally had a very, very good season, apart from the strange defeat to Metz in a midweek round. But Lens have had a whole week to prepare for this game. They've got a really good record on the south coast of France as well. They like coming here. 1 loss in their last 5 at the Stade Louis II. Wouldn't surprise me if they actually win, Lens. I looked at them money line as a potential hot dog. I think can catch Monaco cold. Still adjusting under their new manager. Seem a bit random with the results. I think Lens can get a point here at least.
Yes, the game kicks off at 3:05 Saturday Eastern, incidentally, and do play the Asian line rather than double chance, James, even though it's the same bet.
Yeah, definitely. It's really instructive, this, isn't it? Because it's the same bet, and Lens double chance, which I put down in my notes as my play here, is minus 130. So it's exactly the same pick as Steve's, and you obviously get better odds on the Asian handicap. So always compare the two if you're looking at the double chance market. I agree with Steve. I think we're entering this period of the season now where the teams who are not playing in Europe have got a massive advantage. We saw it in France last season with Marseille. They had clean weeks from weekend to weekend between their league games. Lens are in that position this season. It's already benefiting them for me. They've got a really good coach. They're very well set up. And I think it will help them here because it's the 7th game in 22 days for Monaco. It's only the 5th in 22 days for Lens. I think that's considerable advantage here. So it's very difficult to see them losing because I think Monaco are going to be very tired. And we should add in as well, Monaco had 9 players out injured for that midweek Champions League game. What does that mean? It means they can't really rotate as much as they would like here. So I think it will be a tired Monaco side out on the pitch. Lens have got a very good chance of avoiding defeat.
You mentioned Marseille and dispatches there. They're in action against Brest, 11 a.m. on Saturday. You've got a lean in this one, James?
Yeah, just a lean here. It's on under 3 goals in the game at minus 136. Again, injuries and fatigue is a factor in this. Marseille played in midweek against Atalanta. They lost 1-0 in that match in the Champions League. Same for them as it is for Monaco, 7th game in 22 days. And they've looked really weak up front for me, which is partly down to injuries. Amin Gouiri, who's a really useful attacking player for them, has been out for a couple of weeks. They don't have him this weekend. A couple of other attacking players who would be useful probably not available. What that means is there's a lot of responsibility at the moment on Aubameyang to do a lot. A player in his mid-30s who has been good this season but can't really do it every 3 or 4 days. So I'm expecting a fairly flat attacking performance from Marseille, and I think if they've got any sense, Brest will play into that and just try and park the bus here, because they're struggling themselves going forward at the moment. I wouldn't expect too much from them in the final third. I think their manager should look at this as a chance to maybe shut up shop and keep Marseille quiet. So just a lean, but very close to being my 1 unit play. This is under 3 goals at minus 136.
We've got a couple of La Liga leans from Steve to bring you next. First of all, Sevilla, Osasuna, 10:15 on Saturday morning Eastern. Steve?
Yeah, Sevilla involved, so it's got to be the usual over play.
Clip it up from last week, and the week before that, and the week before that, and the week before that. Go on.
2.25 line this time. We can go over with. Look, the problem I'm having with Sevilla now, I've not fancied quite a lot of the recent overs, but they've still gone over. There's something not ringing right now with these XG numbers. They are really, I'm a bit worried they're not creating much, Sevilla. So that's a concern. Osasuna only scored 1 away goal. So this is what has prevented me from making this an official play. I don't really fancy it, honestly, but their matches just keep going over. It's the way it is. Because I think it's the style that's going to always lead to some big chances somewhere, especially for the opponents. And they do have a good striker, don't they, in Budimir, do Osasuna. So it might well be he gets on the score sheet in this game. But it's another one of those, if you look at Osasuna's matches away from home, the stats don't support this bet at all. And the stats don't support it with Sevilla's expected goals. So, yeah. I'm not that confident, but I'm still betting it because it's just been a system play for me and it's proved to be profitable. But at some point we're going to get a 0-0 for Sevilla when they actually deserve one. Keep tailing if you've been making profit, but there's a few warning signs. I'm still doing it because it's worked.
We talked about this from match day one, and it's the style of play. Obviously, it's being priced up on all of the expected goals metrics. So they price it up on, what the underlying numbers think it should be. If you've bet Sevilla over 2.5 goals every single game in La Liga this season, you're plus 845 up to level stakes. That's the biggest profit of any team in all of the top 5 leagues in Europe. And the bookmakers just keep getting it wrong because they're pricing it up on underlying numbers. And we use it a lot, but sometimes... and the best example I can give really, or 2 examples. One is Brighton from a few years ago when their expected goals numbers were off the charts and they just didn't get that many over 2.5. And sometimes it just works out that way because of the style of the play, the way that they concede. And their XGA is quite a sizable number, but as Steve rightly points out, their expected goals for is pretty paltry. And because they're favourites, and they have to be because they are the better team just about, I think that, the algorithms of the bookmakers pricing up are just seeing it in very one-dimensional way. It'll stop winning for us eventually, Steve, but at the moment, let's just have some money.
Keep riding the train, right?
Exactly.
Whilst it's still going on the track.
Exactly. Atleti against Levante, 12:30 Saturday. What do you like here, Steve?
I like goals again. This time we've got to go a higher goal line, 3.25 goals. Do you know what? This might be a harsh thing for me to say, but I think Levante might be the worst team in La Liga. I don't know what you guys think about that. Put it in the chat as well. And I say this mostly probably from a defensive perspective. If I had to sort of back my side to score goals against anyone, it would be against this Levante defence. It just looks soft. I think they do carry a threat themselves, I'll give them that. But I don't like the defence. They don't look like the sort of team that can just grind out a 0-0 like some of the teams can in La Liga. And I think Atletico Madrid could run them run off a big score here, actually. Atletico are just starting to find a bit of confidence in the league. I mean, they lost against Arsenal. Since then, they've been really focused, Yeah. I think that affected them. I don't think he enjoyed that. And it started off by a couple of wins to 0, but 3-0 against Sevilla last week. They dominated that. They got the 3-1 win in midweek as well in the Champions League, and I think they can score at least 3 goals themselves. They can cover this goal line by themselves. Levante might nick a goal because they do have a bit of a threat, but I'm thinking 4-1, 5-1 to Atletico here. I'd actually looked at the handicap as well, -2. But I think because of the Levante goal threat, then the goals over 3.25 is the better bet.
One Bundesliga lean for us, Steve. This is Saturday 9:30. Freiburg against St. Pauli.
Is it Sunday 9:30? This game actually.
It is Sunday 9:30. It is Sunday. I can't read my own writing. Sunday.
Yeah, I'm hoping for not many goals in the Bundesliga this Sunday, aren't I?
Yeah, you are.
There's another game, Stuttgart Augsburg. Maybe that'll be the goals game. I'm going under 2.5 here. At -112. I love, as you know, opposing sides that are playing away from home in Europe on Thursday night. And Freiburg are one of those sides that they've not been in great form at home. I wanted to oppose them, but St. Pauli's results are horrendous, aren't they? 5 losses in a row, 6 in a row, and they've hardly scored a goal in that period. 1 goal. This has all the makings of a low-scoring fixture. They're so limited, are St. Pauli. These two sides have 2 of the worst expected goals in the Bundesliga as well. The threat's not there. We could see quite a tired performance from Freiburg, and at the moment, St. Pauli don't look like hitting the back of the net. So the 0-0 detector's definitely getting on alert here. Under 2.5 goals looks good. I thought about both teams score no, but I can't see any team scoring 3 goals on their own here, so you might as well cover the 1-1 draw. Under 2.5 goals for me.
We have got some leans in Italy to finish off the show. First of all, both of the boys have got thoughts on the Derby della Mole, the old Turin affair. Juventus against Torino, over 10 years since Torino won a derby, over 20 since they won away. James, you've got a lean first up.
Yeah, it's both teams to score yes, which is available at +118. All about the price, really. It stood out to me as a really big price. You can only think the plus money price here is the market saying they don't think Torino will score, because obviously Juventus clear favourites and you'd expect them to score. A little bit surprised because we've seen Juventus now a couple of times since Spalletti took over as manager. I saw them against Sporting in midweek, which finished in a 1-1 draw. Juventus definitely had the chances to win that game, but they didn't look superbly drilled and organised to me at the back. And we kind of saw that against Cremonese the other week when they won 2-1. But I'm just surprised the market has such faith in Juventus keeping clean sheets this early in Spalletti's reign. And I think Torino may not win the game, but I think they'll fancy their chances. They have scored in 6 of their last 8 in Serie A. They've scored against Napoli. They've scored against Lazio. They've scored against Roma. So, again, if the price had been nearer evens, I probably wouldn't have got involved in this. But I think both teams to score yes at +118 is too big.
Both teams to score yes for James. It's a lean. Steve, what you got in Juve Torino?
Yeah, the lean's Juventus for me. -1 Asian handicap, -115. I like what I've seen from them recently. I should have won the 1 unit play last week. Jamie Vardy spoiled the party, didn't he? With a very good finish, but really Juventus should have covered that handicap. They should have beaten Sporting in midweek. There's too many times though with Juventus this season where we've said they should have won, and they haven't. So that's the concern, isn't it? But they always raise it for this game. When was the last time Torino won a derby? Did you say, Dan? 10
years ago.
Games ago. It's too long. This
yeah.
reminds me of Zanetti and Lyon, where Zanetti couldn't beat Lyon for about 25 years. And it becomes a mental test every single season. And to get over that hump takes something extraordinary. And I don't see it happening away from home. So Juventus, I think, will get the win. A little bit concerned about the scheduling as well. The ladies come in, and I don't know how much time he's had on the training field because they've had a lot of matches, which can be a good thing as well, by the way. You want to see your lads in action, don't you? So I think Juventus -1 is a safe play. But I do admit there's quite a good chance of them winning the match by exactly 1 goal, the way things have been going this season. That 2-1 scoreline looks quite good, doesn't it? Or 3-1. James is right. They always seem to concede a goal somewhere along the line. But I think they'll have enough. Vlahovic is in great form, by the way. He's slightly doubtful for the game. He came off after 80 minutes. I think he'll be fit, but he's the one player that's looking really, really good for them. Penda's looking frustratingly bad, and David's just not getting on the field at the moment.
No, it's Vlahovic or David, and Vlahovic has got the nod, and he's taking that opportunity. Yeah, Juventus conceded 10, second most in the top 8, and they should be 4th on expected points. So that that steers into what you were talking about as well. One final thought from Steve on the Milan game. They're away at Parma. I thought Parma were going to win last weekend. They had a player sent off very early on, and I'd done my money pretty much from the get-go, even though they scored early. They host Milan here, 2:45 Saturday. Steve?
It's me on this one, Dan.
Oh, sorry, James.
Yeah, that's all right. James. It's one of those games we've talked so much about.
We put this running order together very quickly today.
Yeah, we did. We did. Yeah, we talked about the teams who aren't in Europe. I think Milan have really got to try and cash in on that as well. They're like Lens in France in that they've got this great big gap compared to some of their rivals between matches. And I think a game away to Parma is exactly where Milan have to take advantage of that. They're very short to win it, which you'd expect. They're minus 167 to win it. So the lean is Milan minus 0.75 on the Asian handicap, which is available at minus 127. I think with that, all that time to prepare for the game, facing one of the weaker teams in the division, no excuses really, I would say, here for Milan. If they're going to be title contenders, this is where they need to win games. We saw Napoli do it, didn't we, last season when they weren't playing in Europe. Milan have to show the same sort of ability to just pick up the 3 points. Parma probably going to be quite defensive. They've already lost to Roma and Juventus this season, so no real signs of them doing anything special against the top teams. Again, could have been a one-unit play here, but in the end, I just want to see a little bit more from Milan before I get involved in them as a 1 or 2 unit pick, but I do think they should get the job done here. So Milan minus 0.75 on the Asian handicap.
Half win if they win by more than one, and it's a full cash at minus 127. That's Milan away at Parma. Steve, James, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. We will keep everyone updated via our X feeds. That is a wrap for Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. Follow us at Because We Win on Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're getting close to 12,000 followers. Get your comments in, as we've mentioned. We're going to be back in a fortnight's time. We've got the final international break of the calendar year coming up. We'll have lots of content throughout the international break for you as well, so don't despair, soccer betting fans. But for now, from all of us, it's goodbye.